Welcome back to In Your Defense. I'm attorney Steve Toland. We're going to continue our discussion of a multi-part series we've been doing on responding to subpoenas by law enforcement agencies, and particularly we've been in focus on federal subpoenas. Today we're going to talk more about after you receive a paper subpoena request to either produce yourself for an interview or for testimony, or to produce documents through what's called a ducis tecum. What happens instead if the FBI shows up at your office? Let's talk about what that looks like. That is indeed a scary proposition. Surprisingly, it depends on your perspective, but the image of federal agents with the navy coats and the 3 letters of FBI on the back, that's actually not that far off from what it can really look like. If you've ever been called out or seen that in TVs and movies, and I've been called out to the scene literally many times, it actually looks like what it does in the movies and TV shows. So we're going to talk about what is that really like when that happens in real time. And then after that, we'll probably spend some time over the next couple of parts dissecting how you respond to that and get yourself out of that situation as quickly as you can. So what it can look like is this. It's called a raid for a reason. Raid means they're coming to grab any and everything they think can help their case. They don't necessarily know what that's going to be yet, so they're going to come in and grab everything. Secondly, it's a surprise. So the 2 parts you got to remember on a raid by a federal agency is it's going to be a surprise and they're going to grab everything. So you need an attorney there as quickly as possible. What your goal is at that point as the business owner or individual is to find out whomever is sort of going to be the point person. There's always going to be one person that's in charge or one person that's going to be the facilitator of communication. A lot of times their job, I hate to say this and not say anything disparaging about federal agencies, but part of their training is going to be to have somebody talk to you while other agents are out effectuating the grabbing, the seizure of what they believe it likely could be because of the subpoena, a lawful capture of your information. So they have every right to be in there if the subpoena is accurate. We'll talk about legalities of subpoena and stuff like that at a different time. But they're going to have one person kind of talking to you and distracting you, so to speak, while others are out running amongst your office, grabbing documents. So you need your attorney there as quick as you can. And what it's going to look like is they're going to go in literally room by room, wherever there's a computer, or file cabinets, wherever documents are kept. So these days it's pretty much going to be almost anyone's office that has a computer, because most of your employees are going to have a computer and a CPU and things like that. They're going to go to where your server's kept, and they're going to start then asking questions. So if you're like most business owners, you've got a specialization in probably 1 or 2 things. You know all the ins and outs of your business, but for example, you may not be the special person to talk to about the cloud, where you keep documents on the cloud, for example, where you keep documents on different CPU devices, where you keep documents, where your servers are kept, the powering of those servers, what happens when you disrupt to capture documents or data for one server or another if you have more than one, remote servers, things like that, passwords for those things. You're not going to know all that stuff, probably. Or if you know that stuff, you might not be the person to talk to about the financial things. Or you could be a jack of all trades and here's to you. But nonetheless, you're going to need to identify quickly in your head as you call for an attorney and start talking to these agents. All right, who are the people that are going to be my point people? And you want to narrow that down. You don't want that many people doing that. But the FBI is literally, if they're the ones serving this, you have to remember they may not be the people actually conducting the investigation. They may be just the agency that's called upon by the Department of Justice to effectuate and serve this and gather that information as quickly as possible. But you're going to need to recognize that they literally are going to spend all day there, if that's what they need to do, running around grabbing everything. So you want to quickly tell them, hey, look, we're here to cooperate. You're going to have your attorney do all this, of course, and then you're going to start minimizing disruption. It's horribly embarrassing to your business reputation, depending on where your office is. If it's not its own isolated building, but rather in the 2nd or 3rd floor, and the FBI is running in and out of the lobby of this commercial building with boxes and FBI letters on the back, you can imagine the incredible damning impact that can have on your business reputation and you individually. So you want to disrupt that immediately by letting them know through your attorney you are going to cooperate, you're going to minimize timelines, and then of course you're going to minimize disruption, and you're going to get this thing behind you as quick as possible. But what it looks like at the beginning is, and I like to use this analogy for those who have worked with me a long time, they know I love this analogy. The government is a blunt instrument, it's not a surgeon's scalpel, okay? It's never going to be a surgeon's scalpel. A good criminal defense attorney is going to come in there and be precise and help minimize the intrusion and the obstruction upon you and your business and your reputation. The government's job is not to do that, okay? That's a good criminal defense lawyer's job. So you're going to minimize all that disruption and you're going to get this behind you, but it's going to take time. So the first thing you need to do to remember is, if they show up, they're using resources and time, and they're not messing around. They're there to gather as much as they can, as quick as they can. So you need to call your attorney absolutely immediately, and then start identifying who your attorney is going to communicate when your attorney arrives on scene, okay? So that's just a brief summary of kind of how that can happen when the FBI shows up unannounced. The next session we're going to talk about how a good criminal defense attorney starts to help you marshal that stuff together, minimize the digital footprint and the impact on your business and disruption and flow of your clients and client communications, all those kinds of things. So I hope you enjoyed today's session of In Your Defense, and we'll be back next time with more on federal subpoenas. Thank you.